John, as Trump now has mentioned that they may exit, I think now he's been talking about exiting till now he was mentioning that we've won, we're winning so well, we won, constantly reiterating. No one really seems to be buying that, at least not in the international media, not in international circles or people who understand warfare doctrines. But at this point, now he's talking about an exit. Do you find this like a change in strategy? Because now it's finally coming to the fore that we want to get out of it, keeping that timeline intact, because they were looking for a symbolic win that has not come in the form of releasing the Strait of Hormuz from its present predicament. But an exit seems to be the most imminent way out for the US at this point.
Since the conflict began, I've been saying that it's difficult to understand because of the lack of an articulated set of goals for the U.S. operations. This may actually prove to be an advantage in that without a defined goal, the president and the White House can simply declare success anytime that they would want and get out that way. So that may be what the strategy is coming around to be.
And it's interesting because while U.S. says that, of course, everyone has been saying there is no goal, there is no definite goal that U.S. administration has talked about. But on the other hand, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, he said that over half of the military goals are achieved, and it seems like they're determined to extend it. Do you think there's a divide in what U.S. wants at this point and Israel? Because if U.S. wants to get out of this as early as possible, as Trump said, what does it mean for Israel, who said that over half of their military goals are achieved, but it seems that he's saying that more is left?
That's what Prime Minister Netanyahu has said. It appears that there is some difference of views between the U.S. and Israel as to what the purpose of the conflict is. But as the White House still has not articulated what its goals actually are, it's difficult to understand how great that difference may be.
John, you're joining us from Washington. What have you picked up from, the source right over there? What are voices in your part of the world, in your town, in your city, telling you, or what do you pick up? What's the general verdict or general sentiment regarding what has happened in these last 30, 31 days? If you also look at the number of troop deployments, and a lot of military voices, veterans, are not seeming very positive or optimistic about the possibility of troops entering Iran terra firma. What have you picked up from your own discussions in your circles?
Once again, it's difficult to understand why U.S. ground troops would be required if there is not a definite goal for them to achieve by being placed on the ground in Iran. People are certainly concerned about that. There are a lot of people who are concerned about increases in oil prices and other prices that depend on oil for transportation. There is a perhaps sense of relief that the worst predictions regarding U.S. casualties have not come to pass, and that the Iranian military response is increasingly ineffectual. So that may be a potential bit of good news, but overall it's increasing frustration that there are U.S. service members being endangered for not a clear set of goals.
And just adding to that, do you think that there is a sense of, holding back from exit, or when Trump says that he wants to exit, do you think there's some kind of pressure when it comes to, for example, midterm elections that they're going to come up? And do you think that these inflation and prices going up is building a pressure on Trump, and where he seems like, okay, now I think I should get out of it because we have the midterm elections? So politically, what are the reactions coming in Washington?
You raise a very good point. The midterm elections are coming up in November. The Republican Party looks to be in very bad shape for those elections. They will probably lose control of at least one of the two houses of Congress. And so this is something that President Trump and his people have to worry about. But that said, there is still some time to go before that, and there's still time to turn this around. And that is perhaps driving the desire for an exit to the war. It was a war that was begun, I think, in hopes that it would go very quickly, that it would encourage a fast regime change in Iran, this has not happened, and so the White House appears to not have a backup plan and not understand what to do to get out of the mess it created.
John, he's really trying to drive that point too. He feels there has already been a change in regime and they're dealing very well with him. And it's a very, very concerning state when the words of the US president are being looked at with a lot of doubt that he's going to say one thing now and diverge from it very soon. And these are voices from the US which have told us that. Let me quickly go over, and I wanted to get your understanding on how you position US foreign policy as of today. What has happened in Iran? As far as the objectives are concerned, they remain a question. A possible exit from the Strait of Hormuz at this point, leaving it closed, that becomes an even bigger question. But your own foreign policy as a country with Canada, that became an issue as soon as Trump came into office. Your closest allies in the West, those kind of statements that went out from Donald Trump's tweets from his posts on social media regarding NATO or regarding the UK, that you did not come to our help. Australia, Japan saying, no, we do not want to get involved, and then eventually, okay, succumbing and then saying yes. That trip to China being delayed. Of course, the war in the Russia-Ukraine war, that continues. Russian president's visit to US was largely seen as a win for Vladimir Putin. The Gulf countries looking at Ukraine when they already have US air defenses deployed in their country. What is US foreign policy looking like right now?
To be perfectly honest, it's looking like something of a mess. And I think what you're seeing is the effect of not having professional diplomats managing U.S. foreign policy. In Trump's first term, there was some level of confusion, but by and large, you had people who had experience in the Bush and Obama administrations in key positions in the foreign policy establishment. That is not the case now. It is being run largely by politicians with political agendas, and they're amateurs at the actual world of diplomacy. And that is really starting to show. You don't have the professionals running things, you have amateurs, and you have this inconsistent, unpredictable foreign policy that we see.
And that being said, if at all there is an exit from U.S. from Iran, do you think that would be a strategic win for Iran at this point in time? Because even as of now, through a lot of reports, they say that Iran has been earning double from oil that they used to before the war happened. So clearly, economically, Iran doesn't seem to be taking a hit as much as the U.S. is at this point. So in that case, would you say that Iran is winning economically?
I'm not an economist, so I'm not going to offer an opinion on that. What I can say is that Iran is certainly losing the war, in that it's taking damage on a daily basis from U.S. and Israeli attacks and doing very little in return. I feel very bad about the way Iranian people are suffering and in many cases dying as a result of the actions of an unpredictable White House policy. So in that sense, there are no winners in this war. Everyone is losing.
And on the other hand, if you look at, of course, strategically, if you look at how Israel has been reaching out, they've just talked to Saudi Arabia saying that we don't really want to, we have brotherly relations, and where we're attacking is the U.S. bases. So get the U.S. bases from your country out of there. So when we look at Iran's point of view in diplomacy, how do you assess it where U.S. having its bases there are not able to protect all these? There's been an attack in Baghdad in the U.S. near the U.S. embassy. So how do you see this diplomacy occurring in, at this point when Iran is reaching out and saying that we don't want to attack you, we have brotherly relations, and while U.S. is criticizing, almost saying that, when he remarked on one of the leaders in Gulf saying that they're kissing mass?
Forcing the U.S. to leave its bases in the Middle East region has long been a goal of Iranian foreign policy. So I think we see a consistent approach from Iran. They are trying to use the threat of further military action and possible damage to infrastructure in the Gulf countries as a means to leverage the U.S. out of the region. This has been consistent, it hasn't changed, and I think we're going to see more of it as the war continues.
John Edith, thank you so much for your time. Lots more to discuss, it seems like, but let's wait for more statements to come out from both sides to really understand where this war is heading. As of now, it still continues. That was John Edith joining us from Washington, D.C.
Thank you very much.